masters, masters, masters of change.
Hello there. Welcome to Masters of Change. My name is Kim Corneo and I'm the head of music at the Australian National University. I'm here today with my good friend Charlie Hogg, and Charlie is the director of the Brahma Kumaris in Australia, and we're talking spiritual things. Welcome, Charlie.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you.
Charlie, we're really getting our teeth into a really beautiful series of episodes about beliefs. It's a great thought that we all have beliefs, and we've both been talking about the fact that whether we like it or not, we inherit so many beliefs from our society and our culture, and some of the beliefs it's like they're bigger than someone, whether they're from America or Australia or England or India or Africa. They're like almost the whole world holds some types of beliefs. This is an incredible thought. Why is it like that right now?
It's I suppose it's a really fascinating thing, isn't it, Kim, that each culture has a whole set of beliefs about how to live, what is right and what is wrong. And there was an incredible book written by a Harvard professor 30, 40 years ago, which I found quite fascinating because it was called Clash of Civilizations. And really, what it was really saying, there was about 11 main cultures in the world. And they all have their unique set of beliefs. So when they can compare their set of beliefs with others, then others seem uncivilized and uneducated. And so hence we have most of the cultures having a sense of cultural superiority. We are better than the other. Now you think of the problems that's created in our world. It's a sort of an arrogance because I'm born in a particular culture. You're indoctrinated with your set of beliefs about what is right and what is wrong. So when you see someone doing something against your belief set, you believe that's inferior to you. Now you could also do that even within families and within societies, within the workplace. These little sort of cultural islands happen about what is right, what is wrong. So we start to look down and disapprove of other people and the way they behave.
Charlie, I think you've told us the story of why there was war.
Yes.
Because it has to come from something, and it comes from the sense of exclusivity, doesn't it?
It does.
And it's funny because it's the same delusion we have as individuals, but then our whole culture takes on a version of that delusion. But yet, ironically, if all cultures have some version of it, they share this same delusion. So there's an underlying belief. Now, I've heard this described as Maya. Could you define Maya to us?
Yeah. Maya sometimes is translated as illusion, but really I would say it's a completely distorted perception of reality. Now, I find it absolutely fascinating that because of my past actions, because of my culture, because of my family, because of my life experience, I have a whole perception. So it's like I have all this perception in my head about what is right, what is wrong, and yet someone else has a completely different perception, and because they're different to me, I think I'm right and you're wrong. And sometimes when that happens between countries, what do we have? We have this war and this conflict. Sometimes it happens under a roof in one home, a husband and wife or two family members, but it can even happen between communities, between religions and between countries, which, because of this arrogance we develop, really, that my set of beliefs is right and your set of beliefs are wrong.
Charlie, I find this quite amazing because I was going to ask you about happiness, but I think you've told us about one of the root causes of unhappiness.
Yeah.
And so this is something that we can all follow, that all of us, if we're not careful, can fall into this exclusive mode in our lives, where we just want to say that there's myself and the ones that are most dear to me and I'll look after them, but even those ones who are most dear to me, when they don't follow my expectations, I'll punish them quite happily.
Absolutely.
And yet it's not happiness at all, is it?
It's not at all, Kim. And I feel we have this incredible idea that when we communicate with another, that when I sort of communicate an idea, to me it's crystal clear. But I communicate it to an individual, or I communicate it to another culture, whatever, and they don't agree, or they react, or they don't like it. Because one of my life's biggest lessons is that everything goes through all these filters inside our head of, my perception, my experience, my thinking, my mood, my culture. It distorts everything. And so, and these are like all the accumulated beliefs that I've collected that absolutely tell me I'm right and this is reality, and yet it's just my reality, which is fine. But when I start to say, you have to accept my reality, or my reality is right and your reality is wrong, look at the conflict in our world. And, sometimes I think people who are even really close to each other, they see things in such a different way, like couples, they can even have a good marriage, but the way one sees a situation, so different to that. I've been in meetings with a whole group of people and walk out, and one says, oh, that was the most fantastic meeting, and the next person says, that's the worst meeting I've ever been to. Like the perception of reality, each one carries their own perception. It's fascinating, really, isn't it? And we have to understand that in life, that we can't say that's wrong, it just is the way it is. We have to respect.
But it seems like the root of this, if I can use that term, is this notion of trying to make our happiness outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
Because that's just too easy to do. If everyone will just agree with me, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's probably the ultimate sort of superficiality of life today, isn't it? That happiness is out there. So to be happy, I have a relationship, you need to give me love. I have a career where I get my self-respect. I make a lot of money where I get my sense of security, which is fine. But if you don't give me love, or my career is affected by the economy, or I don't accumulate, my happiness goes. And this is the incredible superficiality of contemporary life, that I'm just like a puppet dancing to the tune of the external world. If things go well, I'm happy. If they don't, I'm unhappy. Well, the most inevitable thing, as we know, Kim, is things won't go well sometimes. And really what spirituality is saying is that I create happiness within. And so when circumstances are good, I'm happy, but when circumstances aren't so good, I can still maintain a sense of self-value. They don't threaten my happiness, because my happiness isn't dependent on a whole lot of external factors. Now, I know that's easy to say, but this is, I think, the spiritual journey where I reorientate my life from seeing all happiness coming from out there as to realizing it, all the seeds lie within me.
But one thing you've talked about a lot in our episodes is this notion of experience. We shouldn't just trust a belief or an inherited idea or a dogma. We have to be the ones who have an experience and come back. And I want to ask all of us, and you as well, Charlie, if we have never had the situation, no matter how much we like someone, at some point there's a difficulty. There's no one on this planet that we have a relationship that there will not be a problem with at some time.
That's right.
Because this is part of life, isn't it?
It is so part of life. And, and it's a bit sad, I think, Kim, that sometimes we get on with somebody, then we go through a little rough patch and we decide that, rather than just seeing that, there will be what you just described, some little difficulties, we abandon that relationship and then start another one, then start another one, then we start to become so insecure because, as soon as the other behaves differently from my concept of what is appropriate behaviour, I take unhappiness, And amazingly, in a way, it's a form of selfishness, that you're not behaving according to the rules I like or the way I like. And that makes me really think, Kim, then how selfish is love? You know, we say, oh, I love you, but the next breath I'm saying, but you have to behave according to what I like. And if you do, I will keep loving you. But if you don't, I'm not. Is that love? Or is love really when I love you when you're behaving well, and I love you, you know, I maintain a loving attitude. Now, that doesn't mean I can't express my view, but I maintain love for you.
And Charlie, the ultimate folly in this life is to think we can change other people.
Yes.
Isn't it? There's one bit of change we can do, and it's the one we put off, and that's to change the self. So I want to ask you, if we're not really going to get that love and deep affection, you know, in a permanent sense from those we meet on the journey, what can we do in here?
Yeah. Well, I suppose you've just touched on the absolute essence of spirituality, Kim, which really says there's three sources of love: the self, God, and others. Mm-hmm. And because today we find it so hard to love myself, and also we may have a belief in God, but I'm not sure we really feel loved by God. My one source of love is others. So if they love me, I'm good, but if they don't, my life is just terrible. What is spirituality? Spirituality is developing a loving relationship with myself as a soul, a loving relationship with God, and it's like a platform to have sustainable, loving relationships with others. Because I really believe unless I have a really loving relationship with me, will I be able to sustain loving relationships with others? And because often I don't have a loving relationship with me, I'm a beggar of your love. I'm a beggar. And so, you know, if you love me, I'm okay, but if you don't, I feel rejected. I feel absolutely lost. And unfortunately, a lot of people do feel like that. Even a little indication from someone you love that they are not happy with you, we're shattered, we're shocked, we're disturbed, we go into a depression. We have no inner resilience because I don't have that. I haven't built up that loving relationship with me and God.
So this is opening up something very significant for us, that we are the ones who have to be responsible for everything. And if everything includes happiness, we have a right and a responsibility to ourselves to be happy. Is that right?
We do, Kim. I think that law of spirituality is that I am responsible for how I feel, and it's actually my thoughts that make me happy. I can't change you, but I can change my reaction to you. That's where I have power. And sometimes I think that law of control is an amazing law, because I feel bankrupt of happiness, I try to control you to behave the way I want to give me happiness. Now, when you behave differently, I get very disturbed in that way. But actually, we all know deep down, I can't control my family, I can't control my colleagues, I can't control anyone. The only sphere of influence I have is I can control my reactions, my responses, my thoughts about you. And that dawned on me so deeply early in my spiritual journey. If I want to be happy and you behave badly, I have the choice still. I choose my thoughts. I can still have good thoughts. Now, I may not see the way you behave as the way I would do it, but still, if I have negative thoughts as a result, I've chosen those thoughts. I'm the one giving myself unhappiness, not you.
Charlie, this reminds me of a little story, so I want to take a 1-minute story break, if that's okay. So there's this very traditional story that there's an old monk and a young novice, and then someone comes along and someone's very, very rich, and they're at a riverbank, as you always are. And so, you know, the rich person says, you know, who's going to take me on their shoulders so I don't have to get wet in the river? And, you know, the young monk thinks, oh, that's terrible that he'd say that. My master's a deeply spiritual person, so he shouldn't do that. But actually, I shouldn't do that either. So he says no. And the older monk says, it's a pleasure to carry you. And so then, you know, he takes it over. They both walk over. The rich man goes and walks and says thank you. And then the young monk is saying, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you. You're a serious monk. You're exalted. Why would you just take some horrible person like that? And the old monk says, I carried him across the river and I let him down and you are still carrying him.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is, I think it's one of those fundamental teachings, isn't it? And you've talked about this a lot. It seems the key is detachment. Could you tell us about the key?
Yeah. Kim, I think that it's one of the most misunderstood virtues, really. And a lot of people wouldn't see it as a virtue because, I don't know, the whole word in English has a whole ring to it of being disconnected and unappreciative and cut off and a lot of unfortunate things. But what detachment really means is uninfluenced by. So when the monk put the man down, he stopped thinking. He didn't take any bad feelings from that, but the young monk was still carrying those thoughts. And that's what happens. A little incident happens, we think about it for days, weeks, and we blame you, but actually it's me who's created those thoughts. I'm still carrying, the rich man in my own head, and we do that time and time again. Detachment means I let it go. It gives me the power to let go and just move on because it's such a wisdom. And I would say in this world at the moment it's becoming more and more necessary. And what I always do, I call it detached involvement. I'm still connected, but I'm not carrying the stuff with me. I'm loving, I'm connected, I'm involved, but I don't keep carrying all the rubbish and waste of the past. I remain light.
Charlie, did you know there's even an academic term for this? And it's part of sociology. It's called participant observation. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
So, and actually it was a fellow in the early 20th century called Malinowski. He was actually stuck on a place called the Trobriand Islands outside of Australia. And he was stuck there for the entirety of the First World War. He couldn't leave. So instead of studying the natives, he had to live with them. And he had to drop all his preconceptions in order to be harmonious with these people who he otherwise wouldn't have been friends with. And I find that a bit of a metaphor, that on some level, all of us just need to drop our stuff.
We do.
And, you talked about something, one last thought for me and then your response. It seems like being detached is the key to being happy. If we're detached, we'll be happier. And yet, when we start out, maybe in a not spiritual sense, we think the opposite.
Yeah. I think the way you just described it, Kim, is perfect. The more detached I am, I can sustain my happiness because I'm not, being influenced by the external world. We were talking about happiness being out there. The more I think that, the more it influences me. The more I create happiness inside, I can then live in this world, be involved in this world, connected with this world, fulfilling responsibility, but not being influenced and not buying into other people's unhappiness. Because sometimes I think, well, not only my unhappiness, if I feel there's an injustice against someone, I take that unhappiness as well. Now, I should deal with that injustice in a polite and respectful and kind way, but why do I take on the anger of another individual? It's almost like I've got my own karmic story and now I'm going to take on your karmic story as well. Haven't I got enough to deal with myself without but we buy into, we identify with other people's sorrow. And that's actually my body consciousness, that's my ego that does that.
So really the solution, Charlie, is the solution you give us to all our problems. And we started today's episode by talking briefly about how wars happen. And it seems it's the same solution, which is to remember I am not this body, I am a soul. Because I will be more detached inevitably, but I'll also see other people for what they are, which is a soul.
Yeah. Kim, so much comes back to that, doesn't it? Because I think often we intellectually accept, yes, I need to be more detached, but how do you do it? Actually, the more you become detached from your body and identifying with your body, you automatically are less influenced by people's behavior, people's comments, people's attitudes, people's opinions, people's beliefs. You listen to them, but you don't overreact to them, or and in a way it's like you're giving respect. You're saying, well, that's who you are. And you have every right to your own set of ideas and beliefs. So I don't have to react and disapprove. I just observe them in a way, because I think one great wisdom when you're soul conscious is a natural byproduct. You become a detached observer. And I feel that when I'm body conscious, I'm an absorber. I absorb everything. But when I'm soul conscious, I observe. There's a big difference.
Charlie, that's been, I think, an absolutely beautiful conversation today. So we're going to go into meditation in a sec, but I want to just repeat what you said because it is so profound. We can take this narrative from absorbers to observers. This is such a profound teaching. And sometimes in the Brahma Kumaris, we do like a little slogan. This idea that you can have just a little something that helps us on the journey. So Charlie's given us an absolute beauty, and now he's going to take us on the inner journey. Thank you, Charlie.
Let me begin the journey to soul consciousness. I feel myself gently stepping back, withdrawing, and letting go, identifying with the temporary image of my body. And I experience myself as the soul, sitting in the front of the brain, like the third eye of awareness. And when I sit lightly in the forehead, I look at this world in a different way. I become the detached observer. I see everything, but I don't let it into my mind to disturb me or influence me. This is such a state of wisdom, to sit in my self-respect and observe the drama of life. In terms of myself, I become an honest observer. I learn how to see myself clearly. I don't just focus on all the rubbish and feel bad about who I am, but I see my beauty. I observe myself honestly, my beauty and my strengths, but also the things that I need to change. But in this soul-conscious way, when I see others, I become the benevolent observer. Probably the most powerful way to remain happy in life is to see good in others. It's a choice I make. the more I feel okay about who I am. I can tune into the beauty of others. And my benevolent attitude is like a bridge between me and others. We feel connected. We feel we belong. We feel naturally close. Om Shanti.
Dear friends, may all of you and all of us be happy. We believe you have this innate right as a soul to be happy. And Charlie has said to us today that it's very simple. We need to just remember that we are a soul. We need to practice and become a master of detachment. And we can go even further than detachment. We can go to this benevolent state that Charlie took us to in that beautiful commentary. So it's like we go from someone who validates ourselves from the external, and we slowly close the door on that overstimulation, and we start to heal ourselves and love ourselves from within. We take the love of God inside us, and that transforms us to be a benevolent person and soul in this world. Charlie, that's a beautiful, beautiful narrative you've told us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kim.